order in politics, and therefore we must go now straight to the Talk Radio studios and the leader of the House of Commons, Jacob Rees-Mogg. Mr. Rees-Mogg, welcome to Talk Radio.
Oh, hello. My apologies to Baroness Jones, who I'm sorry is being usurped by me.
Well, we'll get the kettle on, and I'm sure my producer will keep her entertained. It's wonderful to have you on the programme, Mr. Rees-Mogg. You're the leader of the House, and I'm picking up a palpable mood of optimism, both within the House and beyond. We're at the tail end of the pandemic, and very much there's talk of the future, how we get the economy going again, and essentially recovery Britain, bounce back Britain.
I think that's right. I think there's a lot of pent-up demand. I think there's an enthusiasm for the reopening that is taking place, and that's true in the House of Commons. People want to get back onto the benches of the House of Commons to be attending the big parliamentary events as they did in the past. So I think you're absolutely spot on. Across the country, people are enthusiastic about getting back to a greater degree of normality.
It's a capacious Queen's speech with lots of goodies in there, Mr. Rees-Mogg. What's the biggest priority for the government between now and Christmas?
Well, the biggest priority must be the levelling up agenda to try and ensure that there is opportunity across the whole country. And I think within that, it's always about individuals, that very often slogans cover the country at large, but you've got to think about how do you create opportunity for individual people up and down the country. And I think that's the long-term learning loan, which will give people a second chance who may have missed out on their education the first time round, but will also help people gain skills, and so will extend the value of education rather than focusing entirely on academic education.
This is, of course, a big Queen's speech post-Brexit. You are, of course, a lifelong Brexiteer yourself. Boris got Brexit done. And as you wrote in the Telegraph, Parliament can no longer look to Brussels if it gets its policies wrong. It's all happening over there in the House now. It's up to us to make Britain successful.
That's absolutely right. And I think this is very exciting, actually, because previously, as a Member of Parliament, until we left the European Union, if my constituents wrote to me about agriculture or trade or fishes, they would get a reply saying, well, I'm very sorry, but this is all decided at the European Union, and there's nothing that as an MP or even as a government that we can do about it. Now it's up to us. And I think that is a good pressure for politics. I think it makes democracy more immediate, it makes politicians more responsive to their voters, and it puts a greater pressure on governments to deliver what they have promised in their manifestos. There are no more excuses, and I think this is an exciting time for politics.
Now, Mr. Rees-Mogg, in the last 12 months, we have seen, haven't we, enormous borrowing. We've borrowed hundreds of billions of pounds. We've seen the economy trashed, and we've paid people to stay at home. I didn't have you down as a socialist.
No, and you're right not to have me down as a socialist, but the schemes that were introduced a year ago were absolutely right and well worth supporting from a Conservative point of view, because the government is there to do things that the individual can't do and to help during a period of exceptional difficulty. And what has been done with the furlough scheme and the other schemes to help businesses is that the structures of the economy have been maintained, so that when we talk about demand coming back and people being keen to participate economically again, the structures are there to receive their business. If we hadn't had the furlough scheme and the other schemes, the demand would massively exceed the supply, and that would risk being very inflationary. So I think it was absolutely the right decision to take. But, and this is a crucial but, those decisions could only be afforded because the Conservatives from 2010 had re-established the national balance sheet after the depredations of the last Labour government. So the period 2010 to 2020 of rebuilding the fiscal balance sheet of the country was crucially important to being able to afford the support given during the pandemic.
That was good work, and props to the government for that. Props to the government, Mr. Rees-Mogg, for this extraordinary vaccine rollout. But in terms of lockdowns, we haven't really had much bang for our buck, have we, compared to other countries that didn't lock down, didn't see the economic and societal damage. What we've seen from lockdown in terms of controlling the virus has been, to use your phrase, thin gruel.
I don't think that's accurate, actually. I think that it's not easy to judge across the different countries what decisions have had the greatest effect, but the various lockdowns have limited the spread of the coronavirus, have saved lives, and crucially, they've saved lives to the point at which the vaccine can be rolled out, which saves lives on a more sustainable basis, because it means that people simply aren't getting the disease, rather than a delay, which is what lockdowns do in the absence of a vaccine. So it's lockdowns and vaccines have saved many lives.
You are a true and celebrated libertarian, though, Mr. Rees-Mogg, and you have been throughout your career. I think if you were Prime Minister, if you'd been at number 10, I don't think you would have presided over so many ruinous lockdowns, particularly with peer-reviewed studies demonstrating that cases were coming down before each of the 3 national lockdowns. I just don't think you'd have done it.
I think that anybody in the position of the Prime Minister would have come to the same decision as he came, and I think you can be reassured that he is just as liberal as I am in his instincts in this regard, and that a Conservative government does not want to take control of people's lives, but on the evidence being presented, on the scientific evidence that was being put forward, I don't think the government had any choice. So I've fully supported what the Prime Minister has done, and think that any rational person would have ended up doing the same in his shoes.
Finally, Mr. Rees-Mogg, thank you so much for your time. The Prime Minister is excellent at winning elections. Is he good at running the country too?
Oh, absolutely brilliant, yes. I think we're very lucky to have such an incisive, clear-sighted Prime Minister who crucially delivers on his promises. He said he'd get Brexit done, he's got it done. We have now had a Queen's speech that delivers on the manifesto promises that were set out in 2019, which will take legislative form over the next few months. The ability to deliver on what you have promised is crucial to good government.
Fantastic to have you on the programme. Thank you so much, Leader of the House of Commons, Jacob Rees-Mogg.